Welcome to i-TUTOR Economics NCERT series. Today we are beginning a very important chapter, Rural Development. Before we start, let me ask you something. When you hear the word development, what comes to your mind? Exactly. Most of us imagine tall buildings, big industries and technology hubs when we talk about development. But do you know what Mahatma Gandhi said about India's progress? He believed that real progress of India means the development of its villages, not just cities. Even today, Gandhiji's idea is very relevant. Why? Because more than two-thirds of India's population still lives in villages and depends mainly on agriculture for their livelihood. But the problem is, agriculture in many parts of India is not productive enough. It cannot provide enough income or good standards to rural people. In fact, around one-third of rural India still lives in poverty. So, if such a large part of our population is struggling in villages, can India truly progress just because our cities are developing faster? Exactly. That's why rural development is the foundation of national development. Unless our villages grow socially, economically, and educationally, India's progress will always be incomplete. Now, the next question naturally comes. What exactly does rural development mean? Does it only mean better crops and more farms? Or does it include other aspects too, like health, education, and infrastructure? Let's understand that in the next section. Alright, we just discussed why rural development is important. Now, let's see what exactly rural development means. When we say rural development, what comes to your mind? Rural development is not about just one thing. It is a comprehensive term. That means it includes many different areas of progress that together improve the lives of people in villages. It mainly focuses on those areas which are lagging behind, places where the growth of the village economy is still weak. Let's look at the main areas where India still faces challenges and where new initiatives are needed. What are they? Yes, development of human resources, then health and sanitation, land reforms, development of productive resources, infrastructure, special measures and so on. So let's look at each. Development of human resources. This includes improving literacy, especially female literacy, and focusing on education and skill development. Because when people are educated and skilled, they can earn better and live with dignity. What about health and sanitation? A healthy population is the backbone of development. So improving public health and sanitation facilities like clean drinking water, toilets and healthcare centers is a major part of rural development. And what about land reforms? In villages, land is the most important resource, but land distribution is often unequal. So land reforms aims to ensure fair distribution and efficient use of land. Now let's look at development of the productive resources of each locality. That means every village has its own resources like land, water, forest or labor. Rural development tries to make the best use of these local resources to improve income and employment. Now infrastructure development. This means providing electricity, irrigation, roads, transport, credit and marketing facilities. For example, building village roads and connecting them to highways, or setting up agriculture research centers and information services for farmers. Now, what about poverty? Poverty alleviation and employment. Finally, one of the biggest goals of rural development is to reduce poverty and create employment opportunities, especially for weaker sections of society, so that they can live better lives. So, can we say rural development is only about agriculture? No, it's about improving every aspect of village life like education, health, jobs, roads, electricity and equality. Till now, we learned what rural development means and the areas it focuses on. But let's think practically. Who forms the backbone of rural India? Yes, farming communities are the heart of rural India. So to make rural India truly developed, we need to focus on helping our farmers first. To achieve rural development, we must give farmers the means to increase productivity. That is, they should be able to grow more grains, cereals, vegetables and fruits. And also by using modern methods and tools. We should also help them diversify. That means not depending only on crop farming. Farmers can move into non-farm activities like food processing, dairy farming, poultry or handicrafts. This helps them earn extra income and reduce their risk if crops fail. But increasing productivity alone is not enough. For real progress, villages also need affordable access to healthcare, sanitation facilities at workplaces and homes, then education for all, because education opens doors to better opportunities. These must be given top priority for fast and balanced rural development. Now let's understand the bigger issue. Even though the share of agriculture in GDP is decreasing, the number of people depending on agriculture has not reduced yet. So what's happening? Many people are still dependent on farming. But farming itself is not growing fast enough. After the economic reforms in 1991, what happened? The agriculture sector growth slowed down to about 2.3% per year in the 1990s, which was lower than before. Why did this happen? Scholars say one main reason is the decline of public investment in agriculture. That means the government spent less money on things like irrigation, rural roads, research and rural credit. Also, there are other problems like poor infrastructure in villages, then lack of alternative jobs in industries or services, and increasing casualization of work, meaning people only get short-term or unstable jobs. These issues together have slowed down rural progress and caused a lot of distress among farmers. We have all seen or heard news about farmer protests and struggles in different parts of India, right? So, to understand these challenges better, we will now look at three very important aspects of rural India. What are they? Yes, credit and marketing systems, then agricultural diversification and organic farming. Now, before a farmer can harvest his crops, what does he need first? He needs money to buy seeds, fertilizers and tools. Even before he earns a single rupee from selling his crops, he needs money. That's why credit or borrowing money plays a very important role in rural India. Why credit is important? The growth of rural economy depends on the infusion of capital, meaning money must keep flowing into farming and non-farming activities to maintain productivity. But here's the problem. There is a long time gap between sowing and earning. So the farmer has to wait months before selling his produce. So during that period, he needs to borrow money, not only for farming but also for family needs like marriages, religious ceremonies or emergencies. Now let's go back in time before independence. Who do you think farmers borrow money from? Or who do you think farmers borrow money from? Correct. Mostly money lenders and traders. But these lenders exploited farmers. They charged very high interest rate and often manipulated accounts, keeping farmers trapped in lifelong debt. This was called debt trap. So, during post-1969, the beginning of social banking, things began to change. That means things began to change in 1969 when India adopted social banking and a multi-agency approach. This means that banking was no longer just for the rich or for cities. Banks had to reach villages and serve farmers. And in 1982, remember the year, in 1982, the government established the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, that means NABARD, as an apex body to coordinate all rural financing institutions. So NABARD was established in 1982 and it is an apex body for rural credit coordination. Now, with the Green Revolution, what happened? Farming became more modern. With Green Revolution, farming became more modern. New seeds, fertilizers and irrigation methods were used. But these also required more money. So the focus of rural credit shifted towards production-oriented lending. That means giving loans to improve productivity, not just for consumption. Now let's look at some multi-agency rural credit system. Today, rural credit is provided by many institutions working together. This system includes commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperatives and land development banks. Commercial banks, they provide larger loans and cover wide areas. Regional rural banks, they focus mainly on rural and semi-rural areas. Cooperative banks, they are owned by members and serve local credit needs. Land development banks, they provide long-term loans for land improvement. So the main aim of this multi-agency system is to ensure adequate and cheap credit for rural people. And now let's look at the emergence of self-help groups or SHGs. Even with so many institutions, poor villages, especially women and landless laborers, were often left out because banks asked for collateral. Collateral means some property as security. So to solve this problem, self-help groups came into the picture. Self-help groups, they are small groups, especially 10 to 20 members, who come together to save small amounts regularly. These savings are pooled and used to give small loans to members in need. This promotes thrift, self-reliance and collective strength. So this creates self-reliance, thrift and collective strength. Later, SHGs are often linked with banks for larger credit support. For example, let's look at an example. If each woman saves rupees 100 per month, the group collects 2000, which can be lent to one member to start a small shop or buy livestock. So, we understood how rural credit has evolved from moneylenders to banks to self-help groups. But getting credit is only one part of the story. Farmers must also sell their produce at a fair price. And that brings us to the next topic, rural marketing system. So, from moneylenders to banks and finally to self-help groups. Now, let's understand how these self-help groups actually work and how effective the rural banking system has been in reality. Now, self-help groups, as I told you earlier, they are small groups of people, usually 10 to 20 members, who come together, especially in villages, to save small amount of money regularly. These savings are collected into a common pool, and from this pool amount, credit is given to needy members. Now, the loan given has to be repaid in small installments. It has to be repaid in small installments and at reasonable interest rate, unlike the high interest loan of money lenders. For example, if a woman's group save rupees 100, as I told you, 100 each per month, they collect rupees 2000. From this, one woman might borrow rupees 1000 to buy a sewing machine and repay rupees 100 monthly. Now let's look at the growth of SHGs in India. By March 2003, over 7 lakhs of SHGs were credit linked with banks, meaning banks started giving loans directly to these groups. This system of small loans given through SHGs is called microcredit program. They are called microcredit programs. So microcredit programs mean small loans for self-employment and income generation. SHGs have played a very powerful role in empowering women or for the empowerment of women. They have improved women's confidence, decision-making power and financial independence. But there is also a limitation. Most of the borrowing done through SHGs is used for consumption purposes. They are used for consumption purposes like house repairs, marriage expenses or education, and very little goes to agricultural investment. Very little goes to agricultural investment or production. That means the economic impact is still limited. Now let's discuss how the rural banking system, including this commercial banks, cooperatives and regional rural banks, has performed. After the Green Revolution, what happened? The rapid expansion of banking had many positive effects, like it increased farm and non-farm activities. It raised income and employment opportunities, and then it helped farmers get loans for seeds, fertilizers and machinery. Then it prevented famines by ensuring credit and food availability. It helped India achieve food security. Now we even have huge buffer stocks of grains in FCI godowns. So, but despite all these achievements, not everything is perfect. There are still serious problems in our rural credit system. What are they? Yes, underperformance of banks. Then high rate of overdue installments or overdue loans. Then neglect of small and marginal farmers. So let's explain it. Underperformance of banks. Many formal credit institutions are inefficient in reaching the poorest farmers. Loan procedures are too long and complex, and high rate of overdue loans. That means many farmers are unable to repay installments on time. This creates non-performing assets and it leads to losses for banks. And when we talk about neglect of small and marginal farmers, it means big farmers and commercial enterprises often get easier access to loans. So, while rural banking helped reduce dependence on moneylenders and supported growth, it still faces challenges like poor recovery, inadequate outreach, and inefficiency. So, the key takeaway is SHTs promote microcredit and women empowerment, but most loans are for consumption. Rural banking improved output and food security, but suffers from inefficiency and overdue loans. So, that's the final portion of credit in rural area section, focusing on problems in rural banking after reforms and what need to be done for improvement. Now, except for commercial banks, most other formal institutions like this cooperatives, regional rural banks and land development banks have failed to create a strong banking culture in rural areas. What does this mean? They are not very effective in collecting deposits. That is, people don't save much in these institutions. They fail to lend to the right kind of borrowers who can actually make good use of loans. And most importantly, they struggle to recover loans from borrowers. Agricultural loans default rates have been chronologically high. Default rate has been chronologically high, meaning many farmers are unable or unwilling to repay loans on time. Studies shows that nearly 50% of the defaulters are willful defaulters. These are people who actually have the capacity to pay but choose not to. So willful defaulters means those who can repay but don't. This is very dangerous because it creates a loss for banks. It reduces trust in the system and discourages banks from lending further to genuine farmers. So after the economic reforms of 1991, the focus shifted more towards liberalization and profitability. So rural banking lost its earlier momentum. This means that there was less promotion and expansion of rural banks and cooperative credit institutions. So what needs to be done? To fix this, banks need to change their approach from simply being moneylenders to becoming partners in the farmer's progress. This is called relationship banking. Relationship banking means where banks build long-term connections with borrowers, understand their needs and support them beyond just giving loans. Okay, relationship banking means long-term trust plus guidance plus support. Alongside, farmers must also learn to be financially responsible by saving regularly, repaying on time and using their loans productively. So this habit of saving and careful money use is called thrift, and this is called thrift. So the key takeaway is rural credit institutions except commercial banks are struggling with deposit mobilization and loan recovery. Around half of loan defaulters are willful defaulters, which threatens the banking system. After 1991, rural banking expansion slowed down. The solution lies in relationship banking and promoting financial discipline and thrift among farmers. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever seen farmers selling vegetables or grains on the roadsides or local markets? Have you ever thought, how do these products reach cities from villages? That entire process from farm to consumer is what we call the agriculture marketing system. Agriculture marketing is not just selling the crop after harvest. It is a process that includes assembling, storage, processing, transportation, packaging, grading and distribution of different agricultural commodities across the country. So it's a complete chain connecting farmers to consumers. Before independence, the problem was, that means before 1947, farmers faced many hardships when they tried to sell their produce. Let's look at the key issues one by one. Faulty weighing and cheating. Then lack of price information. Then no storage facilities. And also dependence on private traders. So faulty weighing and cheating. That means traders used unfair weighing system and manipulated accounts. So farmers got less money than they deserve. Then lack of price information. Farmers didn't know the market price in different areas. So middlemen would buy from them at very low rates. Then no storage facilities. Farmers had to sell immediately after harvest, even when prices were low, because they couldn't store their produce safely. Even today, about 10% of farm produce gets waste due to lack of storage. Now, dependence on private traders. That means private traders dominated the market and farmers had no choice but to sell them. Because of these problems, the government decided to step in to protect farmers and make the system fair. So the government introduced 4 main measures to improve agriculture marketing. The first step was regulation of market. That means setting up regulated markets to ensure transparency and fairness. So let me explain it. Regulation of markets. Under this system, the government created regulated market yards where farmers and traders could buy and sell in a fair and open environment. The idea was to create orderly and transparent marketing conditions. That means correct weighing, then fair prices, no exploitation and so on. Now, second component was provisional infrastructure. Let's begin with infrastructure. Just think, can a farmer sell his product easily if there are no proper roads or storage near his village? Absolutely not. Agriculture marketing depends a lot on infrastructure things. Things like rural roads and railways to transport goods quickly, then warehouses and godowns, then cold storage to prevent spoilage of perishable goods like fruits, milk, vegetables, etc. Then processing units to convert raw products and so on. However, the current facilities are not enough to meet the growing demand. So the government is focusing on improving this infrastructure to reduce wastage and help farmers get better prices. And the third one is cooperative marketing. What is the third one? Cooperative marketing. Instead of farmers selling individually to middlemen, they come together to form cooperatives. Okay, these cooperatives collect, process and market the produce collectively, which help farmers get fair price and reduce exploitation. So the best example is the milk cooperative, and the best example is the milk cooperatives, especially in Gujarat under the Amul model. This cooperative movement completely transformed the social and economic condition of rural areas. You might have seen the Amul girl ad, right? That's not just about butter, it's about farmer empowerment. But yes, cooperatives. So we will wind up here for now and complete the rest in our next session. Thanks for watching. For more related contents, do like, share and subscribe.